Good morning. So the Advent candles and the Christmas candles have all been lit and extinguished, and our gaze no longer rests upon them on the table here. The days of Christmas are coming to a close as Epiphany arrives. We'll take down more of the decorations across the building after worship today, leaving behind what initially can feel stark and bleak, but also leaving behind a simplicity and a quietness, right? All the high energy of the holidays, the buzz of celebrations now behind us, and so we settle in for a longer season, a season with a different quality, a different texture. And while there is increasing light in our days, the nights can still feel long, the air still cold and crisp and raw. Our instinct may be to hibernate a bit and turn inward, which we need this season, of course, yet also, as the earth turns and as we turn towards a new year, may we also turn towards one another in welcome, like the story of the wise ones long ago, bearing gifts as we guide each other and being a light unto one another. So please extend a greeting to your neighbors as we rise to sing our opening hymn, number 259.
Please join me in the responsive reading in your order of service. The bell is full of wind, though it does not ring. The sky is full of clouds, though it waits alone.
The word is full of voice, even when no one speaks.
The gift is full of promise, though the story is yet untold.
Let us be ones who seek grace across the unseen above.
Good morning, and welcome to one and all, and Happy New Year. My name is Jane Goodspeed, and I'm one of the few in this congregation who has been a part of this church since I was born, which was many, many years ago, and I'm not saying how many. My parents were members here. My dad was a convert from LaGrave Avenue Christian Reformed Church. My brother and sister are members. My grandparents on my mother's side were members as well. I have been a part of the congregation under the tutelage of Milton McGorrell, Edward Nelson, Duncan Littlefair, David Rankin, Brent Smith, and Fred Wooden, one of the best. Thought I'd share with you a little bit of my history here. I went to Sunday school, not character school then, a Fountain Club for 4 years, and went on their 2 trips east to Schenectady, New York, through the testing program, individual testing, and then on to New York City and Washington, D.C. These trips were worth at least a year of school. One of the last times I was in this pulpit was as a senior. 3 of us had to speak about 10 minutes, each on leaving the world in better shape than how we found it. I don't think we did a very good job. Then I was away for 4 years at college, Stanford University in California. While there, I continually searched for a church similar to Fountain Street, with no luck. We are so fortunate here. Came home after my junior year, met Phil. We were married the next summer in the chapel. While I was away, Phil joined the church, unbeknownst to me, while he was assistant treasurer of Grace Church. Some of my activities here have been, I sang in the choir for 40 years from the loft up there under Bev Howerton and Jim Culver. 3 of us started a book club a long time ago, and it is still going strong. Other activities have been the governing board, social action committee, the gardening group, a greeter, and a few others. I love this church, the beautiful sanctuary, the intellectual stimulation, the many challenges, the gorgeous music, the strong sense of community, our old and new friendships, the inclusive and non-judgmental atmosphere. But I'm not supposed to use that word anymore, as you've probably been hearing. Welcome. Let's keep on trying to change the world in our own little way, a little at a time. This is Fountain Street Church, and you belong here. Thank you.
We humans are hardwired for this thing called epiphany, for discovery, for the revealing of more. And it is to this continuing revealing rhythm that I sense liberal religion has dedicated its heart. And it is to this practice that I wish to turn our focus today. Today, all across Christendom, those who read from the Common Lectionary would be reading John 1. Those of you raised in a traditional religious environment will know that text as the one of announcing the incarnation. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. This Word is an idea named the Logos. Logos means an overall and encompassing reality of all things, that all of that became real in a baby born in a manger. And this idea that God somehow incarnates, especially in the small, the meek, and the poor, is the radical good news of the very best of Christian tradition. We don't always do it the very best, though. I got a call this week, and I want to share with you an insight into a moment in which our church shined. It shined because it believes in epiphany. It believes in a revealing, discerning, changing rhythm of becoming more. A friend of our church met a woman who sings in a choir that rehearses in our church, and they learned that this woman had an 11-year-old daughter, and that they attended a different institution. And that institution had refused to baptize their daughter because she had two moms. And so they called me and said, "Would you baptize our daughter?" And I said, "Well, I could do that. But let me tell you about this thing that Fountain Street does. We call it dedication." And as I explained more and more to Mom what this was, she says, I think this would be what we're really seeking. And so the family gathered. As it turned out, the godparents, because they come from Catholic tradition, there were godparents involved. One of them would only be in town one day this year, and this was the day, the next morning. And so they showed up, and as it turned out, we had a wedding. So the chapel was full. Sounds like an inn was full, no room. We went in the Keeler Lounge. Boy, that's beautiful. And we made a space. And I sat down and talked with young Emily and her parents for a minute. And I said to her, "So Emily, tell me, why do you want to do this? I'm not testing you. I need to know so that I can be your best servant." And she looked me square in the eye, and she said, "Well, we went to my mom's church, and they said they wouldn't baptize me because my moms are lesbians, and that bites." Now, if that isn't a theological treatise, I don't know what is. And she was very nervous about the water. You may know that our dedication font, which stands here in the center of our chancel, is a beautiful piece of wood-sculpted art with a blown glass bowl. And we put water in the bowl, which is very traditional, for we all come from the waters. And in the bottom of that bowl, the artist who made it actually scattered a kind of broken, glittery glass that looks like stars. And as a part of the ritual that we went through as a family, what I explained to Emily was that she was being affirmed in her oneness with the family, not only her own, but of all the universe. That indeed she was made of stars, that each and every one of us has come from a kind of eternal unity that is beyond even our wildest imaginations, and that we symbolize it with water of which we are made, and we point to the stars and say, "You are one with us." And then we do this really radical thing. After spending all of this time describing how we are all held in a kind of beautiful oneness, we name the beloved. We say, you're one with us, but you have a name and it is not our name. It is yours and yours alone. We say without exact words, we are one with you, but we are not the same as you. And we celebrate that irreconcilable tension of being human. When we were finished, I looked at Emily, who's just beaming. She's a sixth grader. I mean, her whole world is about how you don't fit in, right? Do you remember sixth grade? Yes. 1,000 Ways to Hate Yourself. It's available in paperback. When we were finished, I looked right into Emily's eyes and I said, I want you to remember this moment as proof that broken things can heal, that gigantic institutions that can hurt you can also change, because this place did not always do this thing. At one time, we had a giant swimming pool in the back. We are a people dedicated to an epiphanal life of becoming that next and greatest affirmation of all that is spoken of in the poetry of Genesis, that it was indeed and is and will become good. And when we finished, we read a bit of Rumi, a Muslim Sufi. Rumi's poetry inspires millions the world over. Very few know he's a Muslim. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. And when the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas and language, even the phrase each other, no longer make sense. As a Muslim, however, Rumi could not join us in celebrating what most people understand as the Epiphany. It is actually one of the great divides between Islam and Christianity, because traditional Christianity, not all forms, but the vast majority of them, hold on to this idea of the Trinity, that God is somehow mysteriously in three persons, not three people, but three realities which are not in any way reconcilable into individuals. It gets very philosophical and way beyond all of our pay grades. But the Muslims have an extraordinary commitment to monotheism, to the idea of unity, such that one of the gravest sins in Muslim tradition is to associate anything to be the same as God. So what the early Roman emperors did in saying, I am Caesar, son of God, is one of the great blasphemies. And Islam is so deeply committed to this thoroughgoing monotheism that any suggestion that the divine one somehow became a guy named Jesus raises an immediate flag, says, wait, now we have two gods. Which one are you worshiping? And then we decided two was enough, we'd make three. The idea in Muslim theology is called tawhid, unity. So there seems to be something of an irreconcilable tension between Christianity and Islam, theologically. Just like Emily saw something of an irreconcilable tension between the dogma of the church, which was supposed to love her, and the practice that said, we will not call you our own. So I want to challenge us today in the spirit of Epiphany, in the spirit of this creative revealing of something more, to a resolution of this problem of the incarnation. To find that field that Rumi talks about, out beyond ideas of whose theology is most correct. And I want to point at a couple of places so that you and me might become the voices of that epiphanal, beautiful imagination of a place beyond theology. Why is this important? It's important because as a world civilization, my sense is that the failure of this kind of creative ability to imagine a place beyond our dogmas, whether they are liberal or conservative, is at the root of much of our human suffering. It is the stuff of religious wars and failed marriages. This failure to find something more, to practice epiphany, is the error that is at the heart of every cruel high school hallway. It is the poison that allows police officers to become the exonerated shooters of 12-year-old children in playgrounds. This essential failure is the error that will close the doors of nearly every church in North America. And if we're not careful, and if we do not practice an epiphanal kind of faithful creativity, it will close us too. It is a failure of identity. Who are we? How do we answer the question of why we are here and how we are to be truly helpful? I want to point us towards 3 Latin words today to try to create that field that Rumi spoke about, that next place where we could meet our Muslim neighbors and speak honestly and honorably about a oneness and a sameness that can never be resolved. I'm going to give you the first 2 words now. They come from Latin. The first is unitas, union, oneness. It is a kind of eternal and inseparable oneness which cannot be divided in any way. And we'll place that over here. And on the other side, we place similitas, which means likeness, resemblance. These are the 2 primary realities we have been handed through our theological histories. Something is either one or it is not one and like it. We are taught these ideas of oneness and not oneness, not sameness, very, very early. So early, I tried this week to imagine where was the first time that I really heard this subtle undercurrent that asks us to learn the world by separating into what does not belong. We learn about the world by discerning and dividing and separating. It's the very source of beauty. When you look into the glass windows and you see that the artist has been able to make differentiations, discernments, differences, and separations between colors and line, texture and form. So there is a great value in this unitas similitas movement, that all beauty would indeed come out of a oneness before beauty could be seen. But before we get too profound, let's get back to where we first learned this. Anybody grow up with Sesame Street? One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong. Oh. We played a little film of this in chapel worship. And it was truly stunning to realize that the balloons that they used for this exercise, the one that didn't belong was the dark balloon. Now, I'm the last one who wants to attribute grand conspiracies of social ill to Kermit the Frog. But is it really an accident that the dark balloon is the one that doesn't belong among us on a TV show made by white people? I don't know. But I want us to pay attention. This is where the third word that I mentioned in Latin can be exceptionally helpful to us, because my sense is this wonderful little song from Sesame Street only tells half the story. It only says that we can discern that one of these does not belong, but we don't finish the song, which says, and the only reason that that's worth doing is because we are capable of honoring the oneness from which all beautiful distinction arises. We're one, but we're not the same. We need to finish the little limerick. Otherwise, all we end up doing is defining our lives and relationships by what we are not. And there was a time in this very institution when that was the greatest single gift that could have been given to Grand Rapids. To provide a place where you could come and openly and freely, no differently than young Emily who came to be called one, put up your hand and say, "I do not believe so," and not be cast out as not belonging. But the time has come to finish the song. The time is to decide that we will sing an epiphanal creativity that answers the question of who we actually are, not just who we're not. And no one can do that for us. No one will rise into this pulpit and answer that question for any one of us, but they will ask you, and I will ask you today to begin to answer that question. Who are you? In positive terms. It's harder than you think. Go home and try it. The third word that makes this possible from Latin is identitas. It's the place from which we get the idea of identity. Identitas comes into Latin very, very late, and I don't think that's an accident. So far beyond unitas and similitas because cultures before the Enlightenment did not have the idea of the individual self, of an identity. Identitas is a fabulous concept because it is post-traditional theology, a word that did not exist when the great scholars of the first millennium spoke about the divide between the Muslim and Christian theologies. Identitas is an epiphany. It comes in the language, so says the dictionary, from the need to provide an idea that indeed all things come from one source and yet they are not all the same. They are, in the great words of Bono, one but not the same. Identitas. It is the mystery of oneness without sameness that I believe is that field out beyond right doing and wrong doing. And my sense is it is our calling to help the world, even to demand that the world take seriously an unresolvable yet beautiful tension. Why do I think this is possible? I think this is possible because I met this happening this summer. To describe what it feels like to enter into a moment of epiphanal, beautiful, dangerous identitas. I want you to come with me to Palestine. Come with me to Al-Shuhada Street in Hebron. We're walking there with our guide. His name is Amr. Amr is a Palestinian Muslim. Amr lives in the most heavily militarized area of Israeli-occupied West Bank. 600 Israeli Defense Force soldiers guard 500 Jewish settlers. That's more than one machine gun for every man, woman, and children in his neighborhood. And on that day, we are granted a rare opportunity. Palestinians are not allowed to walk down al-Shuhada Street. Any Palestinian found in that area will be shot on sight. So our guide, Amr, had to leave us as we walked down. And he walked up through the Palestinian graveyards, and we could see him up on the hillside. As we walked down this eerie ghost town, Palestinians have renamed it Apartheid Street. All the doors of all the businesses above which Palestinian homes still exist have been welded shut by the military. To enter into their homes, the Palestinians who still own these properties must enter through the windows in the back of their houses. All of this has been done in response to a horrible massacre which happened about 10 years ago when a radical Jewish settler entered the Ibrahimi Mosque and shot 29 people in prayer. And so now they have closed al-Shuhada Street so that the 500 Jewish settlers who live in the neighborhood can pass down this one street to the mosque, which has been divided exactly in half with bulletproof glass, so that Jews and Muslims can pray in the same house dedicated to Abraham. Don't mistake my description of this as any kind of knowledge of who is right doing and wrong doing. This is a field well beyond that place. It is so deeply troubling and confusing all at once that we were literally dizzy as we found our way to the end of al-Shuhada Street to regain contact with Amr. And then the miracle happened. It's the Sabbath. Just by accident, this is the day we happen to be there. And on the Sabbath, the IDF changes all of the guards, the military soldiers. And on the Sabbath, there is something of an unspoken understanding that violence by either side is inappropriate. And so we managed to encounter a single IDF soldier. Usually they're in pairs. We encountered a young man named Jacob. Me and Dana and Amr. At the top of the hill overlooking al-Shuhada Street, came nose to nose with young Jacob. Jacob is like 5 minutes past 18. In Israel, you have 3-year compulsory service for males in the military. Much to our surprise, Amr was willing to engage with us in a conversation with Jacob. We soon learned that Jacob's from Wisconsin. Jacob holds dual passports. And so if he didn't serve his time in the Israeli military, he would lose his Israeli citizenship, something his deeply conservative Jewish family felt very important for him to keep. And so Jacob stands a post over the ghost town of al-Shuhada Street. And one of his requirements is to place in his gun sight any military-aged male who enters his field of vision. And so as we walked towards him out of al-Shuhada, Dana and I had a machine gun pointed at us. It's one of the most profoundly othering experiences I have ever had, is to have someone point a weapon of death at me for an extended period of time. But we began the conversation. And the conversation led to Amr describing all manner of horrors that have been unleashed upon he and his family inside the neighborhood, the destruction of their homes, the welding closed of their businesses, his inability to leave H2, the name of the area which has been militarized at all. Amr's father and brother are imprisoned in Jerusalem. He will never visit them. Matter of fact, one of our other host families over there, the father died the week after we were in Hebron, stuck at one of the military checkpoints as he was having heart failure. You can't even leave if you're dying. But as this began to become more and more ingrained in an essential otherness between Amr and Jacob, Jacob asked, no, he demanded to be heard. And young 18-year-old Wisconsin farm boy Jacob unleashed a sermon upon us which we will never forget, and I hope you don't forget it either. He said, I am not your enemy, looking right at Amr. This uniform that you see, and the fear of the men who require that I wear it or lose my citizenship, they are our enemy, friend. For those guys, those soldiers you speak about who invade your homes and abuse your freedoms and do all manner of unspeakable things every day here on Al-Shuhada Street, they are the ones who are the idolaters, not you and me. They are the ones who do not practice tawhid. And in this moment, this Israeli Jewish soldier boy starts speaking Muslim theology. Do not collapse me into the horror of their sin, he said. For this would be shirk, the Muslim idea of sin, idolatry. I ask you, no, I demand that you not confuse me with someone and something I am not. What Jacob was saying to all of us, and which has left me with a profound and unresolved sense that we must find that new field, that epiphanal, creative distinction out of oneness. What he's saying to us was, grant me the mystery, the dignity of my identitas, my oneness with you, which does not have to be the same as you. We are one, but we are not the same. And that's where I find that we need to finish that song. The one that if you're a popular music fan, you know the rest of the words to we're one, but we're not the same. We get to carry each other. We get to carry each other. This is the hard work of epiphanal living. To say I see and honor the oneness, but I also know and honor the differentness, and I will find with you a field somewhere that honors both, but is somehow mysteriously beyond both. Imagine if this more whole idea of what it means to find beauty by distinction was taught on Sesame Street. Imagine if identitas was the primary psychology of every police officer in America. Would we this day be mourning Tamir Rice? If every police officer and every citizen in America was deeply committed to being one but not the same. Imagine if identitas was the primary faith of all of our families. Would we not suffer less and live more deeply into the beauty that is the struggle of being alive at all? And if we can do this for ourselves, and I believe we can because we gather together to encourage and expect that we will, then we have earned the right to demand this same holy instant where we do not define the one before us by how they are not us, but by how they are one and not the same. We can demand this same holy instant by those who hold power. The moment that we say, oh, that's different, that's weird, that's strange, that's foreign, that's wrong, that's other, we must call each other to accountability. We must be like the Magi who seek the more. We must become the world and the ones who build the field beyond ideas of right doing and wrong doing. And in so doing, we will do the thing that the best of religion could offer young Emily. To look deeply into each other's eyes and find beauty in the truth that we are indeed deeply different, but we will never lose our commitment to the oneness which demands our greater concern. Go, friends, and make this so. We're going to sing our final hymn today, Forward Through the Ages, and then welcome those who have interest to participate in the blessing of the gifts, a wonderful tradition now in its third year at Fountain Street. You don't have to have a gift in hand to participate. The idea behind the blessing of the gifts is to bring forward either the actual gift or the gift in mind that you received this holiday that you have an epiphanal hope for, a gift that could be a physical object or a new person in your life. To bring them forward and to bless them into more. So if you'd like to participate, I welcome you to come down the outside aisles after we sing the hymn. And if you would like to go immediately to soup, to head up our center aisles and head out that way. May the gifts of Epiphany be a great blessing upon us one and all in this season of wonder, of joy, and of expectation.